Right, I think now it is time to pass over to the audience. I think we've got John out there. John, give us a wave.
Yes, just along here. Okay, how would you like to work? First hand up, or how would you want to...
Entirely up to you, John. Whoever seems most attractive.
Most attractive? Okay, we'll keep going. Well, we'll stuff. You're first.
Quick question. How do you deal with what I would term gits?
How do I deal with?
Gits.
Gits?
Yeah. People like me who want to actually come along to your show, work out how you do it, and then actually trick you back and try and sort of mess up the trick.
Oh, I see.
How do you deal with people who... I mean, have all of your effects got a get out, and how do you cope with those kind of people like me?
Well, to be honest, it doesn't really happen. I think they're not really sort of on stage. I think you have to be completely in control on stage, otherwise it's just not going to work anyway. So that doesn't quite arise. But I mean, there are certainly some things that it's important to me to get somebody up who's going to challenge me. So sometimes I'll look for the person that's kind of sat a bit like that and is clearly going to be tough, because not because it makes them tough on stage, because I can still. It just makes them kind of. It's that weird thing of if you ask someone to think of a letter of the alphabet and they're playing fairly, then there's a 1 in 26 chance of getting it right. But if they say, go on, try it on me, I bet you can't do it, they're thinking of Q or Z, so now it's only 1 in 2, so it's easier to work with somebody there who's trying to catch you out, yeah? So it's the same thing. So sometimes on stage, sometimes that kind of attitude of trying to catch you out can actually be very, very helpful, because it just makes people far more predictable. So I don't consider it a bad thing at all. It's just using whatever people bring you and making sure you get to where you want to go. With him or her.
We found somebody attractive at last. Here we are.
Oh, thank God. Hello.
Hiya. I was wondering, you talked a lot during your show about psychology and... Yeah. Sorry, can you hear me?
Just about, yeah. Can you speak up a little bit? Thank
sorry.
you. Yeah.
You talked about just statistics and psychology and that there's no such thing as psychic ability, that you don't consider yourself to have any psychic ability. And then you told somebody that they had 3 kidneys.
Yep.
That kind of threw me a bit, because I mean, with all the behavioural psychology knowledge in the world, you can't diagnose somebody with 3 kidneys from 200 foot across the cinema theatre. I mean, I'm just wondering whether you're going to give us any insight into that at all.
Well, that's sort of the point, isn't it? That is, and I think what I do when I say those things are very honest. I don't have psychic ability, and no one's playing along, and it's not Stooges and all the rest of it. But then you still have to try and create. It's trying to find a balance between creating the kind of the feeling of amazement or wonder, or what you're trying to do as your job as some sort of magician, but at the same point, just going, look, I'm not one of those people that will put you in touch with your dead relatives, and I'm not psychic, and if you can look at this and go, well, if he can do that and he's not psychic, then hopefully people might then look at the psychics that are doing things that often aren't as impressive. That's an awful thing to say, but sadly it's true. When you go and see a psychic do a show as opposed to an edited version on TV, it's just dire a lot of the time. And no, well, maybe they don't have to be psychic as well. So, but yes, and also, that is something based on acts that used to happen in the back in the 30s, and but I suppose that's hopefully what I would want to leave somebody with, is them going, okay, it's possible to do that without any recourse to a supernatural technique. So that's enough to hopefully just have in the back of your mind without needing to... Well, it's nice, of course, I'm sure you do want to know how it's done, but the important thing for me is that it can be done without needing to be psychic at all on any level, and that's important, because I think it's, Douglas Adams had a thing about, isn't it enough to know that the garden's beautiful without needing to believe that there are fairies at the bottom of it? And I think that, in this world at the moment where we have all this sort of psychic stuff and people saying, yes, you've got to be open-minded, which means supposedly seems to be believing anything, I think it's enough sometimes. And I think to know that we as human beings can create things that, for me, the psychological explanation of why a psychic might work, why you might listen to a psychic tell you something and think, God, that's me they're talking about. The reason why that's happening is because you're making it fit, because we are pattern-finding animals. So when they say things that are actually a little bit general or very specific, but you'll find somewhere where you can make it fit, the fact you do that, the fact we do that as human beings and make those things fit, or the fact that a magician can stand on stage and do something that fools you into thinking that something supernatural must be happening, those are all human processes, and to me that's always going to be much more beautiful and resonant than the psychic explanation, because it says something about us as human beings, and to me that's always has to be the more fascinating explanation, because it's the real one.
Obviously, the brain is, a very powerful tool, and a lot of what you do is kind of getting a reaction out of people, but also, like, to create something within them. I mean, the whole idea of the trick or treat was...